Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. 2 African-American teens murdered, 2 trials, no one held accountable. Does the stand your ground law work? Gay professional athletes, how will Major League Sports respond? And speaking of sports, how about the efforts of the NFL to keep the N-word off the football field? Plus, President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative. Will it be effective or is it too late? Roger, Will, and Bill are here, and they've got lots to talk about. It's the Another View Roundtable right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. We have lots to talk about today, but before we get to that, I want to say send our heartfelt sympathy to the Langford family. We lost a civil rights icon this week, civil rights activist Rufus Rudy Langford, who was 80 years old. He passed away on March 10th. I think that was Monday of this week. And Rudy Langford joined the frontline ranks of the civil rights movement under Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and served fearlessly for 10 years. He held memberships in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Urban League, the Congress of Racial Equality, and the National Action Network, No Justice, No Peace. And he also was state president of the Virginia Coalition for Justice for Civil Rights, and he founded chapters across Virginia and worked tirelessly for civil rights in our area. Rufus Rudy Langford passed away dead at the age of 80. And speaking of civil rights events, I want to put in a plug for The Mountaintop, which is now playing at the Wells Theater. It's an artistic interpretation of the thoughts of Dr. Martin Luther King on the night before his assassination. It is irreverent, humorous, serious, thought-provoking, and emotional. I had the pleasure last Sunday of moderating a discussion on Dr. King as an icon with historian Dr. Cassandra Newby-Alexander and Virginia Health and Human Services Secretary Maurice Jones, and we had a great time with the audience. The play goes through this Sunday, so check it out if you can. And welcome to all of you who are attending the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, or the MEAC as we call it. The MEAC. Just want to welcome everyone to town. Norfolk State, I believe, is still in the tournament at this point, and the men's group, and I think the A&T women are still in the tournament. So we are moving forward with that. So welcome to Hampton Roads. Hope you all are having a great time. So the round table is back. Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
Let me introduce the round table. Roger Chesley is the columnist for the Virginian-Pilot, and you can read his column every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. How you doing, Roger?
Hello, Barbara. Good to be back.
Absolutely. Missed you guys. Bill Thomas is our community activist with our conservative point of view. How you doing, Bill?
Well, I'm halfway decent with y'all fix your traffic around here, but it's fine. It's fine.
I think traffic is all throughout Hampton Roads, don't you think?
No, it's outrageous. We're losing business, and it's outrageous. Mayor Sessions was right, but before you move on, another really gentle giant passed away recently, Senator Benjamin Lambert from Richmond, Virginia. And you talk about a civil rights just icon and a person who really did things and got things accomplished, and wonderful family and success with brothers and sisters. His mom is still alive. And wow. Benny, he was 77 years old, a friend to all Virginians, and he actually got things done. He worked with Governor Wilder to help him get elected. He was the first House of Delegate member, senator, high up on the Appropriations Committee, and actually did things to make lives for all Virginians, especially African Americans. And a fine friend, a gentle giant, was just very, very non-consuming, but got things done. We loved him all, and I wish his family well. Very good guy.
Thank you, Bill, for that. Appreciate it. And Wil LaVeist, he's the author of Fired Up, How to Win When You Lose Your Job. And he's also a journalist and a talk show host. And he looks like Denzel Washington sitting in the studio with his sunglasses on. How you doing?
That's what they tell me all the time. Whether I'm in studio, outside, whatever. Just wish I had Denzel's money. I'd be all right. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Carol Pretlow, we're sending you well wishes. Carol has the flu, so she could not join us today.
Yeah, I'm especially missing her now because it's like a little bit too much testosterone going on.
Feel better, Carol.
Absolutely. We want Carol to feel better. Okay, let's get started. My Brother's Keeper. New initiative announced by President Barack Obama recently. And before we talk about it, let's listen to his reasons for why this is necessary.
First of all, we know that during the first 3 years of life, a child born into a low-income family hears 30 million fewer words than a child born into a well-off family. And everybody knows babies are sponges. They just soak that up. A 30 million word deficit is hard to make up. And if a black or Latino kid isn't ready for kindergarten, he's half as likely to finish middle school with strong academic and social skills. So by giving more of our kids access to high-quality early education and by helping parents get the tools they need to help their children succeed, we can give more kids a better shot at the career they're capable of and the life that will make us all better off.
Meanwhile, this week, Congressman Paul Ryan said this: we have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular, of men not working and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. There is a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with. Now, his comments drew a lot of criticism.
Not from me.
I know, and before you start, Bill.
True as all. Thank you.
Representative
Amen.
Barbara Lee had to say Ryan's comments about inner city poverty are a thinly veiled racial attack and cannot be tolerated. Let's be clear when Mr. Ryan says inner city, when he says culture, these are simply code words for what he really means: black. You disagree, Bill?
Oh, absolutely. She's out of her mind. Anybody can look, and it's just not black. It's white folks as well and Latinos. But if you take your hand out of the sand and look up and see Congresswoman, whatever, black men aren't working for whatever reason. But I'm tired of the excuses. If you can't work, go to school. Go get another trade. Go get a job. But don't start a family. Don't take care of our black women. Don't pay taxes. Don't sell drugs. I'm just sick of it. We have horrendous unemployment rates in our communities. And this is not the African-American community that I was born and raised in. And I don't want to hear any more excuses. There's no legitimate reason for a man, black, white, Hispanic, gay, not gay, or whatever else, that has a family, has responsibilities, to not go get a doggone job and go take care of their families. And I'm tired of these doggone excuses.
But, Roger, do you think it's just because they don't want to work?
No, it's not because they want to work. And we had this discussion online a few days ago or yesterday about this. We know about the dearth of good-paying jobs within the inner cities. We know about the lack of willingness in Congress to raise the federal minimum wage. We know about there's now an initiative by the president to try to get more people eligible for overtime. Now, all these things are happening when some of the wealthiest among us are reaping huge benefits from stock and other investments. They don't pay the full freight on it in terms of taxes. It's not counted as income, even though for many of the people making that, it is a huge means of income. So to say that, and just one other thing, we've seen a lot of jobs leave our shores, especially in blue-collar manufacturing jobs that were a key for many people in the inner city to make a very good middle-class careers for themselves. So to say this is just ridiculous, especially at a time now that we're still struggling to, have the economy improve, and it's been very persistent, very slow struggle, just for most of us to get better jobs, and better pay. Let's not even talk about the last time many of us have even got raises at our jobs.
Well, I heard a statistic the other day that said that the unemployment rate for Latinos is about 8%. For African Americans, it's 12 to 13%. So is it their fault that there are no jobs, or as Bill seems to suggest, that they just kind of sit around and don't want to work?
I'm not laughing because it's funny.
It's true.
It is true.
It's a fact
that people who are not working should not engage in behaviors that just further exacerbate the problem. But the reality is, and just like we were talking about online, is that there are things that happen to you when you are poor. There are studies that show your mentality and how you are affected. So when Bill is saying, I didn't grow up in this kind of community, he grew up in an environment that gave him a certain level of wherewithal of how he should conduct himself. So what he's missing, and what people like him and Ryan miss, is that when you don't have that, then what does that produce? What mentality does that produce? So instead of coming up with a solution for how people can grow up in environments where they can have the same kind of support that Bill had or Ryan had and that President Obama is talking about. He just said it's studies that show when you are poor, you are not getting the same kind of information that other people who will become successful get. So when they cry and say that, these people are lazy, there's truth in what they're saying, but they're just beating up on the poor. They're not offering any solution for how they even develop this mentality where they don't look at the world in the same way that Bill looks at it. And he's not addressing that. He's just beating up on. And so what's your end game? You don't have one. And Ryan doesn't have one. And he himself had to back up on what he said and started talking about, I was talking about rule. Well, yeah.
He was telling the truth.
So what's your end game?
I worked every day, as have you, Roger, and you, Will, and I'm sure you, Barbara, every day in my life since I was 13 years old. Sometimes 2 jobs, sometimes 3 to pay my way through college. I worked in the largest warehouse in Kansas.
No end game.
I worked every day in my life.
No end game.
If there is an end game, go get a damn job. Go to work. What do you mean an end game? Get off your behind.
The reason why you did that, the reason why I did that, the reason why Roger, the reason why Carol's not here, the reason why Barbara did it is because we had a certain amount of information. Okay, no.
Nah.
All right.
What our community said, if you didn't work, they called you worthless. They called you a bomb. They called you that, you're no good. You're no account. We don't do that anymore. We want to take my money, or the other people that are making out here, and get to a certain segment of our community, I say black, white, and whatever else, who don't want to work.
Bill, you as an economist know that a capitalist society needs an underclass.
Exactly.
You know that.
You don't have to be.
What are you saying?
Don't yell.
When full employment is so many percentage points of unemployment, actually, you know that we as a society in this country, it exists on having people who are available to work for very poor pay.
So
and so, yeah, okay, you can take some of those low-paying jobs that don't provide benefits and might not materially get you very much farther along than your family is right now. Yes, we need better education.
You don't have a job, don't have a family.
But let me ask you this question then, gentlemen, since this really applies to men. Do you all think that the My Brother's Keeper initiative can help address some of this? Roger?
I'm hoping so. I would say that the president, and I know what the political ramifications were for him, that he didn't do this in the first term. He should have done it in the first term. He shouldn't have waited till now. He knew what the problems were for people who look like us all across the country. And I just wonder, this is all nice. It's all packaged very well. But is this going to be actually more money that's going to be going to these programs or these initiatives? Or is this the same amount of money that was there all along and just tabulated together?
In a different package?
Right. What's going to be how do you assess whether it's actually doing anything for people or working well? I'm glad it's there. I want to see that it's actually going to have some meat, that's going to actually have some ability to help people. I would hope that it would be. but I think time is going to tell on that.
Well,
I think that I agree with Roger. It was political implications as to why he probably didn't do it in the first term. He put together an initiative to look at what is working and to find ways to support that. He didn't put forth specific things yet that are going to work, specific things that I remember growing up as a kid, like summer jobs,
Right?
yeah.
and things of those natures. Is I think there's a lot that we already know that works, and I would tell people to, CNN is doing a series on Chicagoland. I would say it's very instructive because I used to live in the Chicagoland area, know it very well, and people should really look at that, and it really gives you a sense of the history of how people ended up in these areas that they are in inner cities, the history behind it, how we were, people were subjected to what amounts to a caste system, and how if you're in that, how do you now develop the mentality and the resources and the wherewithal to get yourself out of that?
Hold on a second. James joins us from Hampton. Hi, James. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm really liking this discussion. I generally agree with Bill and Ryan about the issue, but the guy who was first talking with Bill, I missed his name, sorry, but I really like how you understood where we come from, and also you point out a very good point that just saying, the oversimplified answer is not the answer that people need. It's not a resource that helps anybody. I firmly believe that educating people on how to do it, like we were educated in the same circumstances. I mean, I came from poor neighborhood, and now I'm middle class. It's because I was given that wherewithal, and that's what we need to focus on, is providing that environment for people to learn what we have learned. And I think those of us who are against things like minimum wage and stuff like that need to focus more on teaching people how they can make for themselves, rather than just telling them they need to go out and get a job and things like that.
Thank you, James, for that comment. Bill, you want to respond?
I don't know what else to say. I know hunger is a pretty good motivator. Not being able to buy your drugs or pay for your Obama phone, which is free. You get free food, you get free water, you get free transportation, you get free health care. We live in a get-free nation where you don't have to do any doggone thing. And now you're going to tell me this man who doesn't even know Aretha Franklin's songs, who has no reality, and that's our president, of what's really actually going on because he didn't live in these communities, and now he's going to come back with some government program to take more money from the hard-working people.
It's not a government program.
We're sick
That's
of
the
it.
point.
We're sick of it. We want people to go to work. Get off your behind. The caller is unrealistic. You get 13 free years of education. They tell you to go to work. And you don't go to work, you don't go to school, you have these babies, you have these families, you have this welfare, and I'm talking about people that are sick. I'm talking about able-bodied grown men that are walking right up and down Hampton Boulevards now with no doggone job and no life
Bill,
and no future.
Let me ask you a question, because when someone is listening to this show and hearing you make these broad statements, do you worry that you're painting a group of people very, very broadly in such a negative light? Does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me one bit, because a little bit of shame, a little bit embarrassment, I wouldn't have respect for any grown man who would have a baby and would stay at home and not take care of his woman and his family. I have no respect for them. They're worthless. They're slime. They need to go do something and take care of themselves and get off the government dole.
Well, as much as I love Bill and feel his passion, I have more confidence in people like the caller who called in and said, I think that people who are poor and dire straits need to do better, but I also recognize that they need skills, just like I had to get skills in order to move myself forward. And that's where we need to move the discussion. People like Ryan, who are public servants in position of leadership, ought not to just engage themselves in rhetoric where they just want to hear themselves talk.
But offer something specific.
Yeah, and that's it. Offer something specific.
Roger?
It's we need both carrot and sticks, but too often from the GOP, all I hear is the stick. And for a party to keep saying, we want to reach out to Hispanics and we want to reach out to African Americans. And then you make comments like this. Frankly, I wish he would have been a little bit less veiled and been more truthful and just said, hey, you black folks and you Hispanics in the inner cities, you need to get off your butt. At least he would have been honest then. He didn't do that. Okay, but here's the other thing. You're not getting rich off of TANF. You have, after Bill Clinton's decision in the mid-'90s to, quote, reform welfare, limits were put on the number of years that you could actually receive those types of benefits over a lifetime. You're not getting rich off food stamps.
And I do want to make one other point too, as the vice chair of NRHA, which deals with people in public housing. The people that you talk about, Bill, in terms of the drug dealers and so forth, they aren't allowed to get those benefits because they're not allowed to live in public housing.
How are these women getting pregnant then? Who are impregnating all? No, see, you don't want to hear the truth. And see, I don't say, don't feed the bureaucracy, feed the people. If you want to give resources, close down the Norfolk Redevelopment Housing Authority and take those resources and create jobs and give them directly to the people so they can go out here and get a job. They don't need a house. They need to go to work, own their own house.
I have confidence in the listeners.
Okay, let's go on to our next
no values, no
topic.
Spirits, no nothing, and y'all just gonna go on with this. My last point, and I'm gonna let it go.
Okay.
If you're a grown man, I won't use the word.
Thank you.
But you're a grown man, and you do things that grown men do, and have the consequences of it. Go out and get a job.
The fact of the matter is, people do get jobs, but many of the low-wage jobs don't do very much to helping you supporting and two low-wage jobs. Because if you have two low-wage jobs, you probably still don't have health care.
Well, so you can't
and there have been fights against making Obamacare active throughout Virginia and expanding Medicaid in Virginia. So there are barriers. I think even the most well-meaning and the most industrious of folks will find it hard to make ends meet. And yes, I think a lot of us need to work harder, but by the same token, we're not always getting paid well for the efforts that we make.
Go back to school.
And I would agree. I would agree that if you are in poverty, you ought not to. I always tell people, young people, whatever, when I speak in organizations, do not have children until you are in a position to take care of them.
With a job.
Do not, because in this country, as much as we talk about upward mobility, this country is one of the most difficult countries to get out of poverty.
That's true.
And if you have a child in poverty, you pretty much guaranteed yourself that you and your child will remain so.
Or at least be struggling for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, if you're just joining us, we're talking with the Another View Roundtable. Roger Chesley with the Virginian-Pilot, community activist Bill Thomas, and author, talk show host, and journalist Wil LaVeist. Let's go on to our next topic, which is gay players and Major League Sports. Jason Collins, the first gay NBA player, he signed a 10-day contract with the Nets, so I guess that makes him legitimately the first gay NBA player, and he was a free agent when he announced that he was gay. Michael Sam, a college player who wants to be drafted by the NFL, announces before the combine that he's gay. Let's listen to what he had to say and a reaction to his thoughts.
I'm Michael Sam. I'm a football player and I'm gay. Is this a huge deal? I understand that it is, but my purpose and focus right now is playing football. I'm coming out because I want to own my truth. I'm comfortable who I am, and I didn't want anyone to break a story without me telling it, and I want to tell it the way I want to tell it. You know, it's 2014. I can't tell society to agree with this or not to agree with this, but hopefully society will rally around me and support me too. I may be the first, but you know, I probably may be the first, but I won't be the last. And I think only good things are going to come from this.
I think that he would not be accepted as much as we think he would be accepted. Imagine if he's the guy next to me and, you know, I get dressed naked, taking a shower, the whole nine, and it just so happens he looks at me.
That was Jonathan Vilma, an NFL defensive lineman, reacting to Michael Sam's comments. Will, let's start with you.
I think it's been said so many times with all of this that there have been gay players in professional sports for a while. I mean, these are the first openly. But actually, I remember, I believe back in the 70s, there was a baseball player who was openly gay. And the media wouldn't, because of the way society was then, just wouldn't write about it. Like he said, this is 2014. He has a right to be able to pursue his profession. And I think, having played sports, I played a little college ball, played high school. A lot of times, again, the closeness, you kind of know. You know, these guys know what's going on and who's who and what's what. And I don't think anybody's going to be lunging at anybody in locker rooms and that kind of thing, because they already know. So a lot of it will be how society and the attention of it, and when that dies down, is going to get down to playing ball. And the guy that's coming out of college, at the bottom line, if he can't play, he's not going to play.
Roger, don't you think it's interesting?
And if he can play, people are going to rally around to him more. The fans in whatever city he goes to are going to rally around.
Because of his ability to play football.
Exactly. You know, it's interesting with Jason Collins. He came out after being in the league for so many years, so he was, in a sense, a known quantity. Now, he is a marginal player. There was some discussion, well, why didn't he get signed for so long this year after he came out at the end of last year? Well, he's not going to get you that many points in the game. He's going to play a little bit of defense, set a few screens, maybe get a few rebounds. So that factors into it too. But by the same token, he's a known quantity. He's been a journeyman. He's been on a lot of different teams. A lot of people know him in the league. I think it's somewhat telling. And there was even a headline in one of the stories this week about how it's not even that much of a news in New York and New Jersey plays. Well, I guess it's New York now since it plays for Brooklyn. So it's not even that much of a deal now. Sam, I think, will be a little bit different, for one, because he'll be a rookie this year, but also he's considered a better player coming out of college.
Do you think it's interesting, though, that both of these gentlemen are African American, considering the taboo-ness still within the African American community in some sectors about being gay?
Maybe it's slightly different in the sense that perhaps it could have been somebody else. It's sort of a coincidence, I think, more than anything else that they're both black.
Bill, you are conspicuously quiet over there. What do you think?
I really don't have any comment on this. I think it's ridiculous. I truly do. If you can perform, and if you can score points, or if you can make tackles, or if you can earn money, then you have a right to do it. Now, all this drama and all this stuff about I'm being gay, I think it's theatrics. And then for them to make us look like it's about black problem again, and it's really sad. It really is. I agree with Roger. If the man can score some points, if he can make some tackles, he's going to be a performer. Basically, these people are out here, especially in football, are nothing more than gladiators. And so you got a one-headed gladiator, a two-headed gladiator, a gay gladiator, a black gay gladiator. Who cares? If you can go out there and knock somebody's head off, or if you can go out here and do what you need to do, score points, and put on your clown suit out on the basketball court and go out there with the pink tennis shoes and blue and orange, you're just a performer.
Well, obviously people care, because it wouldn't be making an issue of it.
No, nobody cares. The liberal media is making an issue out of it.
The liberal media. People care because there's been several players who have come through the professional ranks and we're not openly gay. So obviously people care.
What?
Oh, okay.
And you see by the comments of somebody like Jonathan Vilma, who's a respected player. He's a very good player that has been for the New Orleans Saints.
Sure.
There is still some discomfort. There's still, if not outright homophobia, from some of the players. I believe it was Tim Hardaway lost his job with one of the TV networks after he made some anti-gay comments about players. This was after his career had ended, and he was in the broadcast booth. So yeah, some of these attitudes are out there. The question is, how widespread is it? How prevalent is it? And does it prevent somebody who should be on the team from being on the team?
He better be able to play.
That is the bottom line.
No guarantee contracts.
So, but then this dovetails into another topic, and that is the discussion about comparing the African American, the civil rights movement of African Americans to gay rights movement, and the thought that, or they're saying now that gay is the new black, if you will, in terms of the civil rights movements. Do you?
I find that in some ways, I see what people are trying to say. They're saying here's a group of people who have been discriminated against and not able to be all of who they can be in society. But I find it offensive on another level, too, because you're talking about African Americans and Native Americans in this country as two groups who have been systematically oppressed and put in a caste system. People who have been gay, if you did not reveal that being the case, that didn't prevent you necessarily, unless you were black, that didn't prevent you from being able to realize yourself in terms of your professional. Yes, there was some things in terms of marriage and other limitations, but to be put in a caste system, that's a far different level of oppression. To be nearly annihilated, Native Americans have faced. And so it offends me on that level when people just loosely make these connections. And because what it does is that it lessens the impact that has had on those two groups of people.
Bill,
here's what I know. If it was 1956 and I was in Natchez, Mississippi, and winked at a very attractive gay white man sitting on a park bench, I still would have been hung.
Okay, Roger. Well, I mean, you can't. What can you say to that, right?
I don't know what I can say to that, so I won't try to. But I understand the linkage that often takes place. You don't always know if somebody you see on the street is gay. You tend to know if somebody on the street is black or Hispanic. I said you don't always know if somebody you see on the street is gay.
Right.
But still, there are obvious similarities, and I'm not offended that somebody would consider that linkage. I understand the shared struggles. They might not be quite the same, but I'm not offended by it.
Okay. Our third topic, stand your ground. The mothers of Trayvon Martin and Jordan Davis, Sabrina Fulton and Lucia McBath, protested this week the stand your ground law in Florida. Let's hear from them about why they say the law is a license to kill.
We don't have to have a law in place that says I need to shoot and kill someone and then ask questions later. These two moms are going to make positive change to make sure that stand your ground doesn't continue to happen.
I thought, oh my gosh, Jordan is Trayvon. People who use the stand your ground statutes are able to use it with no accountability. It gives them immunity for their criminal behavior.
Well, you brought up a point when we were talking about topics and so forth, and you were saying that the stand your ground law actually was not used in either as a defense in either one of these trials.
Yeah, that's what my understanding. That's what challenged me in both, is that we're talking so much about stand your ground, yet that's hovering around this, but then in the actual courtroom and the actual strategies, that wasn't even the case. So it's like, here we go again. It's like we constantly, as a society, we go at this low-hanging fruit, and we're like missing what is the core problem here? What is the core issue? Stand your ground didn't come up in either of those cases.
Well, I do think that in the jury instructions in the Zimmerman trial, at least from what I've read, that was part of the instructions that the judge gave in that case.
So it wasn't necessarily part of the defense, but the judge.
That's what the news stories that I've read suggest on that. So it might not have been necessarily part of the defense or the prosecution, but it did play a role in the trials. And I would urge folks to take a look at a June 1st, 2012 piece by the Tampa Bay Times that really studied, I think it was about 200 cases involved with stand your ground in Florida. And there were a couple of things that stood out. One, those that invoked it and avoided prosecution to avoid prosecution have been very successful. Nearly 70% had gone free. And secondly, defendants claiming stand your ground were more likely to prevail if the victim was black. So part of the issue, I think, is that it's very hard and kind of all over the map on how some of these cases are defended, how some are prosecuted, whether some people are actually charged at all. The drug dealers have gotten off invoking the stand your ground defense. So it's somewhat strange, and what some of the prosecutors
bizarre.
Very, and what some of the prosecutors are saying is, look, you're giving a license to kill to people who shouldn't have that license, and I think that's the thing that's scariest to me. And in the second case that just took place in Florida, the defendant was convicted on the 3 people he missed, and he was acquitted. Well, a hung jury on the person that he killed. So it's somewhat mind-boggling what this law has done, I think, in general, or what the specter of the law has done in the way some of these cases are adjudicated.
Bill, they're talking about expanding the law to now include the opportunity to fire a warning shot in reaction to what happened with the woman who happened to be African American who fired the warning shot against her abusive husband and was sentenced to 20 years. So, your reaction?
Oh, I thought she was guilty. I thought she went out to her car in the garage, got a weapon, came into the house, shot it up in the air above the bedroom where her baby was sleeping.
But she says that she was afraid.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure she was. She wasn't afraid enough to go out there and get that gun and bring it back. The underlying issue, my mom used to say, to wipe out an epidemic, you must first eliminate its source. This stand your ground, as Will has correctly identified, and with the statistics that Roger just talked about, that's not the issue.
Okay.
The issue is white folks see young black males as dangerous. Dangerous. And it's what you call, and I think Will and I agree on this, it's institutionalized racism.
Right.
And it's something that is a part of the American fabric. It has never been broken. And it is still here today. Now, our kids are changing because they don't understand it and they don't do history enough to understand the causes of it. But here's what we used to do. I'll go back to old campgrounds. Roger, Will may not want me to go there. We were told whenever we were encountered by the authority or a white man, it's yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, sir, because we are black. These folks see you as dangerous, a threat to their lives, to their white women, and to everything that they want to do, and to them, because you're smart and they're not. You're college educated and they're not. So the underlying root cause of all of this stuff, you can mess with these laws all you want. And that's why I like to see white black men portrayed very, very positively with jobs and things. But right now, today, black young males are looked at as threats to the American society. They fear them. I think even Reverend Jesse Jackson said he feared them as well. And it just seems like that's it.
So how do we turn that perception around,
We
Roger?
do know that a lot of us are in prison for doing some bad things. But we also know that some of the same crimes or some of the same offenses we're charged with, whites don't get treated the same way for the same charges.
Sure.
And that, I've been told that usually there is a small cohort of a group in any given city, and this is what law enforcement officials have told me, that are responsible for most of the crimes. So it doesn't mean that every black person is doing bad. It doesn't even mean that every young black male that you see on the street has malice aforethought in his heart or is involved in some type of criminality. And I think the problem comes when you treat every individual of a particular group in the same way. They're not all doing wrong. They're not all involved in crimes. And I do have one. I do disagree with Bill on one thing. I would not expect. I think you should treat police with they're enforcing the law. They're enforcing respect. But if a white male comes on the street and approaches me and comes with some type of disrespect, I'm not sure why African Americans should treat that person with respect. And it was one of the things I was trying to get across in the Trayvon Martin case when some people, after I wrote about it, said, why didn't he just tell Mr. Zimmerman, look, this is who I am and this is where I am? I said, he was not a police officer. That man had no right to quiz him about what he was doing on the street. I would have felt offended or worse. And now maybe as an older male and somebody who's been around the block a few times and with experience, I might have answered in a different way. But I would have understood the anger coming from Trayvon Martin in that case.
Because of how he was.
Let me just cut in here, Will. I'll let you go. But you're arguing against yourself, Roger. Mm-hmm. You're saying that we have all of these consequences where black males are convicted more easily and this and that and the other. And sometimes I think that the air of the success of middle-class African Americans like ourselves think that everything is all right. In heaven, we've arrived at heaven. We have not. People don't respect you. I see some of the things they write about you in the column. I see it. And it has nothing to do with logic. It has nothing to do with competence. It has everything with Roger being black. And you don't want to see that. I think, well, you have boys. I think you have girls.
I got two. I got boy and a girl.
But I know what I told my kids, same thing my daddy. You were born, two things in life that are going to happen to you, and it's not death and taxes. You're born black and you're going to die black. And how you live your life and understand the fears and the consequences of a white authoritarian person that doesn't have it all together, that you're going to win that battle 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose.
Well, I was just going to add that what Roger just described was institutional racism. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's how it plays out. You just have this normalized mindset that a young black man, if approached by a white person who has no official authority, he should acquiesce. I mean, and it's that is what happens in this society, and this is where we're at. And if we continue to just talk about stand your ground, not that that's not important, but if you just talk about that, you're never going to get to what is the core problem. And that's what it is. It's institutionalized.
But then,
normalized behavior.
All right. So we all agree it's institutionalized racism. But how do we change the dialogue? How do we start changing?
You can change the dialogue. We talked about this before on this show. That there are people who are out there and in this community doing that kind of work of getting groups together and getting people to talk about these things. The organization of inclusion, didn't they? What's the organization? They gave you an award or something.
Now that you say that, I forgot what it is.
We having a senior moment, but I mean, there are organizations that do this kind of work. It needs to be ingrained in the school systems. This is where we learn a lot of how we interact.
The VCIC, that's what it is. Sorry.
We need to be addressing this inside our faith communities, be addressed inside all the institutions.
Let me ask a question then, because do you think that there are different conversations going up inside of different segments of our community? In other words,
absolutely.
Are middle-class families having one conversation, lower-class families having another conversation, upper middle class having a third conversation?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so how do we bring that all together so that we can change
can I
society?
Say one thing
Sure. And then come to you, Will.
I will push back on one of the things Bill said. I think middle-class blacks don't think they might have everything fine. I'm far from thinking that's the case. And I'm keenly aware of the attitudes that some people have in this country and continue to have. That being said, I do understand also the anger of many African Americans and how they are approached by other people and the certain perceptions that come from some of the people who approach them.
And let's be honest,
on both sides.
Yeah, let's be honest too, that you have a lot of African Americans in positions of authority who buy into this and do as well and do the same thing. And you have a lot of African Americans who are in lower class and buy into the stereotypes and act them out. And so that's what I mean. This is how it impacts all of us.
Bill?
But you really look at it. The one thing about the O.J. trial, which I believe he was guilty as hell, but he had one of the best lawyers in the world representing him. So it gets down to be economics. And then what we need to understand is that some people are never going to change their framework. They're just not going to do it. And let's do it in a religious house. They're not the most segregated hour on Sunday anyhow. It remains to be that way. I think because we are still, for the most part, a properless and politically effective community of people, we are powerless. And so we really can't change policy. You can't change anybody's mind, but you can change policies to punish them economically for having these kinds of thoughts and these kind of concerns. And lastly, when I was growing up, as were you guys, I probably would bet there were 50 African-American civil rights lawyers in Hampton Roads. That when things like this jumped off, or in Florida, that they would be right there advocating with law, not with emotion, but with law. Name me a civil rights lawyer that's black in Hampton Roads today.
Are you putting me on the spot?
No, I'm just saying that. I can go with my own two boys.
Yeah.
They're both lawyers. Best schools in the country, best law schools in the country. One works for a Fortune 5 company, and one is a lobbyist in D.C. They have no interest in representing the interests of people that look like them. They know the values, but they're not going to do it because they don't see the perspective of the need to have that done. 50 years ago, I don't think Mr. Martin or Mr. Davis would have had the problems. I thought there have been very, very smart civil rights lawyers that are out there using the law to protect our rights, and that don't exist today either.
Let's take a quick call. Carol joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Carol. You're on the air.
Hi. I'm 61 and my father is 90. We're upper middle class white people. We have been, for some reason, reading a lot about the history of African Americans in the United States, and especially about slavery. And it's given us tremendous insight into the horrible division and mistreatment that African Americans have suffered. And my belief is that because you can so easily spot a person's skin color, that without a really intensive immersion in the history of the whole institution in America, racism is going to persist. But I think that intensive education is possible.
Okay. Carol, thanks so much for that call. Let's get a reaction. Well, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was talking about.
That's it. Institutionalized racism hasn't been broken. And then one other thing that's
But he said it was helpless.
Hopeless.
Hopeless.
Because
and I don't,
but she's saying that
she's
it's not.
contradicting
No,
that.
it's going to change. It's going to change when people die and when the new generation
it didn't
comes up.
change for her.
Exactly.
She's not dead.
And she said that she's 61 and her father's 90.
She studied
Isn't
it.
that, though, more encouraging
Absolutely.
that someone who grew up in an era.
This is why I say I trust your listeners. I trust your listeners, Barbara.
But
I mean,
because,
listen. Hold on, Bill. You got a whole lot to say today.
you trust.
This is your listeners are telling you.
No, one listener.
Telling you something. This has been
not listeners.
Okay,
This is
Bill,
this
let
has
him
been
finish.
a couple. This has
Go
been
ahead.
a couple now
Go
that
ahead,
is saying,
Will.
"Hey,
No, it's
I see what's going on, and here's someone that's in her 60s who's lived, a full life and has experiences, but has taken the time to educate herself, and that can be done. And so, what if we start implementing that kind of, she said it, intensive kind of study at younger ages? What might the outcome be? But we got to ask ourselves. That's a no-brainer. Why isn't it being done? Because there are people, there are incentives to keep us divided and keep us at each other.
Which means that we have to have things like My Brother's Keeper.
No, you don't.
To-
No, you
in order
don't.
to
Because
make
y'all don't
sense.
even listen to yourselves. You said she educated herself. And I'm sure she had discussions with her 91-year-old father. Didn't Barack Obama or some liberal Democrat come up there with some four-speed plan? The other thing that she said, she read the African-American history. Now, Black History Month or week or whatever they have it these days has become a joke. But they don't want to talk about my heroes in Black history, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, H. Rap Brown, Nate Turner. We just hear one side of it. And just because they raised the battle flag of the South or whatever, or Stars and Bars, and thought they beat and killed black people, when I went to Natchez, Mississippi and lived down there with my we gave as much as we got. So we don't hear those kinds of
You got
history.
a rock in your shoe today.
No, I have no rock in my shoe. No, that's between you. See, you're a bleeding heart liberal.
No, I'm
you
not.
think that people are going to do
Roger
the right
is the bleeding
thing.
heart
They're
liberal.
not
I'm
going
in
to
the
do
middle.
it. They're
I'm
not
in the
going to do
middle.
it.
Well,
Roger's
sometimes
a
they
liberal.
will. Go ahead, Roger.
I'm sorry.
I love my colleagues on this show. I really do. I like seeing them once a month, and that's probably enough.
There you go.
Okay. I think it's great that we educate ourselves. And Black History, it's not just a month. You can learn from it all year. And I think some of the greatest things about Facebook that I'm learning about is the many posts that people put on there about people I had no ideas
Good
about.
point.
And, I saw something today about a mayor, a white mayor
Good point.
in Michigan, who back in the 1970s, he was tarred and feathered for trying to make integration of the schools there in his city in Michigan, go more smoothly. And the people who were against that, targeted him. He was. There's a picture of him watching that off.
We do tend to think that it's black and white, but there were people who actually came together and all fought for civil rights.
And we all want people, I think, to be this beloved society, this feeling for your fellow man to, what is he doing and helping him and regardless of race. So yes, we have to keep working toward that while at the same time working to make ourselves better, as a people.
Okay.
And the point I want to make is the fact that we're not generalizing.
We got 1 minute left.
Generalizing against white folks. There are some black folks that's living right here today that are worse than anything that white folks could ever have done to us. So it is all key to that. It's all key to that, and Malcolm X said we had to get rid of some of us before we even thought about the white man. But see, it's not generalization of what some group of white people are conspiring to do to us. It's just a history of institutionalized racism that was ingrained in folks during slavery time, and that cell is still in us.
Okay, you got the last word. That's it, guys. We are out of time. Oh, my goodness. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next month. Hopefully, Carol will be back with us, and we will be right back.
Hi, I'm Claude McKnight of Group Take 6, and you're listening to Another View, Fridays at noon at WHRV 89.5 FM.
And that's it for this edition of the Another View Roundtable. If you'd like to hear the show again or share it with a friend, please visit anotherviewradio.org and download the podcast. You can also sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming programs, and we're on Facebook, so please like us. Next week, we're going to talk about children and divorce. We'll talk about ways to protect the children when spouses call it quits. Want to thank the Roundtable again. Want to encourage you all once again, if you have not had a chance to see the mountaintop, I think that it is an experience that you will long remember, and I hope you get a chance this weekend to go down to the Wells Theater and check it out. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is the audio engineer, and Austin Bell answered our phones today. Take care, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.